Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. I'm your host, Kiera Dent, and I have this crazy idea that maybe I could combine a doctor and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, regional manager, practice owner, and I have a team of traveling consultants where we have traveled to over 165 different offices coaching teams. Yep, we don't just understand you, we are you. Our mission is to positively impact the world of dental, and I believe that this podcast is the greatest way I can help elevate teams, grow VIP experiences, reduce stress, and create A-teams. Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. Hello, Dental Team listeners. This is Kiera, and I'm so excited because normally when I podcast, it's me and a guest or me and maybe a consultant. And today I get the pleasure of having two consultants on the podcast with me today. I have the one and only Dana and also the one and only Britt Stone. So Dana, how you doing today? Welcome.
Doing good. Happy to be here.
I love podcasting with you guys. Britt, how you doing over there today?
I'm doing great. I love it when we get to group podcast together.
I did find the one where we did a whole thing. Dana, I think it was real life where we said the random thing about you running into a deer on the last podcast. If you missed that podcast and you want to know more about the one and only Dana, please go listen to it. Dana, you're just one of the most interesting people I've ever met. And Jason, I didn't send it in the random, but I had about 7 boxes from Amazon, all thanks to you, from all of your tips that you give with all the things. He was like, give me Dana's phone number. Dana's got tips and stories that you will never, ever understand. She's my workout girl. She's my, you want to have glowing skin, all the things. Dana's your girl. So anyway, and then Britt's my no BS Britt over there. And she's like, you don't need half that stuff. Do one regime of that, which I appreciate. But today we decided as a special way for you guys, we're wrapping up our book clubs. We only have 2 more of this year. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed them. But today it's going to be medical medium. And so me, Britt, and Dana decided we would get on a podcast today and show you kind of how we book club, kind of how you guys can run this in your office. And if you didn't read the book, totally fine. This one is a unique one. It's all things, it's kind of out there. So if you hated this book, I respect you. If you loved this book, I respect you. I just enjoy having things that challenge and make us think differently about our lives, about our bodies, about how we're working. So we're just going to kind of kick it off. Typically, Britt runs it. She's the one. So Britt, if you want to give any tips on how to make a successful book club before we dive into the nuts and bolts about medical medium, any tips you've got on how to make these successful book clubs?
Yeah. So, I'll say we've got our hardcore book club people right here with you on the podcast, obviously. So ours is not a mandatory book club for our team. Brett only has one rule is that you have to have read some of the book to attend. So you can participate in the conversation and know what we're talking about and what's going on. I think big tips would be choose good books that you're wanting, either that the team's going to be interested in or that are going to have an impact on your culture. Because I think that's one of the biggest benefits of a book club is impacting our culture. Allowing us to learn and grow, and then making book club fun. I don't know, for our team, it's kind of like hangout time, but we have something cool to talk about while we hang out, which is a lot of fun.
I agree. I do enjoy it. I think it's been fun this year. And that's why we purposely choose books, not necessarily books. This one, I was so excited to hear about Dana's juicy nonsense on it because I could already tell that Dana was going to have a love or a hate for this book. Britt, I figured would come in with all of her ideas on how she's going to challenge them. And I'm going to come in of I want to prove a point. These are the things, but it's really, really fun for all of us to get together to share, like Britt said, something to talk about. Dana, how has it been for you this year with book club?
Oh, I love book club. I think one, Britt, Kiera, you picked really great books and a nice variety, which I think is nice. And I agree with Britt. I just like the hang out, the talk, the dig a little deeper, get to know each other on a different level. So I have absolutely loved book club.
Thanks for that, Dana. I do. So just so you guys know, we have ours once a month. We do ours actually during the day. We don't see patients. So if you guys want to incorporate a book club into your office, it could be maybe once a month on lunch and you guys get together, you have lunch, you talk about the book. Like Britt said, you don't have to read the full book because we are hitting a book a month and that can be challenging. But I don't know, Dana, something I've watched with you, especially this year, is I feel like you have grown. I don't want to say it wasn't your confidence. I just feel I saw a different version of you because of book club this year, which helped me see like who you were as a different person, how like different skills you have, different pieces. Like I felt like it melded us together in a way that I hadn't seen before. And I don't know if you felt that way, but that was kind of one of the takes I loved this year from book club.
Oh yeah, I agree. That's why I keep showing up every month.
Well, we'll kick it off. So there's just some tips for you guys. Again, book club, like Britt said, have it be a fun book. We purposely chose books that you might not agree with. I think all the health ones I've come through this year have definitely been the spiciest ones of do you enjoy them? Do you not enjoy them? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And then there's leadership books, there's culture, and you better believe I picked books that I wanted our team to build as culture. So I want our consultants to be well rounded. We don't just consult on you guys as your practice and your numbers. We consult on you as a human. And if you're not healthy as a human, how can you show up for your patients in your practice? You can't. If you're not good on business and knowing your numbers, how can you show up and run a practice? You can't. Like it's going to get real stressful for you. And then being that great leader, which are all the pieces that we do in consulting. So you as a person, making sure you're healthy, you got great fulfilling relationships, making sure you're profitable, that you're taking home the pay that you want to get paid, and then also making sure you're systematized and you have that strong leadership. So that was kind of our core of why I chose the books that we did. Britt and I picked them out, and then here we are. So medical median. Dana, kick us off. What were some of the like highlights from medical median that you had? We're going to give you guys just like quick, this is how we book club, and we're going to dive through. So if you didn't read the book, here's some quick highlights from it. But Dana, kick us off. What were some of the things you took
Yeah.
away from medical median?
Sure. I think the biggest thing for me is, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, is when you know something is wrong and you go to traditional doctors, right, and nothing can be found on x-rays, on scans and blood work, things like that. And so what I can really get behind in this book is digging deeper and looking for other signs and symptoms that your body gives you, because I truly do believe that your body is telling you something is wrong. And so believe that with everything you have and dig and find the answers, even if it isn't in traditional medicine.
I agree. And I think that that was one of the reasons I liked this book. So this one came when I went to a Tony Robbins event. That's how this one even made it on to the book club list, because I think there's some wild stuff out there that's not traditional medicine. But I think just because it's wild doesn't mean it's wrong. So agreed, like different answers. And I know for me, like chronic hip and knee pain, and it drives me nuts to have that when doctors are like, here, there's nothing wrong. And I'm like, then why am I in pain? Because I don't believe the body's have pain when nothing's there. Just like a car doesn't make clicking sounds when nothing's wrong. So Britt, any thoughts you've got on it?
Yeah, I mean, do I want to meet this person who can apparently like just look at me or be around me and tell me like what's wrong with me? Sure. I feel like it's a magic trick I need to see at some point. But I really love the idea of like food is important and what we feed our bodies is really important and can have a big impact on how we feel. And if there's something going on, I do believe that there's a lot that can be healed and solved with what you eat.
Which is weird. So Dana, I'm going to come to you. Dana is like my go-to person, like macros, working out. If you don't know Dana, go watch her Instagram. Like this girl lifts more than a building. Like it's insanity to me. So Dana, kind of walk me through coming from like in that zone of life where it is so much about health and fitness and nutrition and macros. Like you and I talk macros, which Dana is light years ahead of me. I'm like a baby macroer, and I'm like, you really eat this much protein? And Dana, if I can quote you, it was so funny. You're like, Kiera, my second job is eating protein. And I like that was such a good visual of how much protein you're eating every day. And I remember back on our like Own the Day, Own Your Life by Aubrey Marcus. That one, I just remember my takeaway from our book club we had was you were like, lift heavy, like be strong, have strong muscles. So what's your take on coming from that world into this medical median about health? Like give me some takes that like that you had, different pieces you had for that.
Yeah, sure. So the food part, I think was the biggest thing that I can get behind, because I always look at food as more like fuel, right, for what I want my body to do. But I also do feel like when you have some aches and pains, and I know that's just even in my personal life, right, if I avoid certain types of food that I know don't make me feel good, I consistently feel better. So I loved that part of looking at food as healing. And I think a great place to start when you don't feel good or you can't find answers is in starting to look at what you can limit in your diet, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe what you can increase to in your diet of things that you know make you feel really well. So I think food journaling is always something that I feel like can give you a lot of answers on how your body is functioning and how you feel.
So Dana, walk me through, because we do time journaling for practices all the time. How do you food journal? Like, I am your student because I've never done this and it feels daunting to me. So I'm just going to play like, I love being Kiera because I get to ask the questions that most people have but aren't willing to ask. What do we do?
Yeah, sure. So I think the initial one is just writing down what you eat and then how you feel, right, for at least a week. And then looking at on the days where maybe you didn't feel great, maybe you were low energy, maybe you had some stomach pain, maybe, you had headaches or body aches, things like that. Like notating those symptoms down and then looking at your food. And then if you can correlate anything, right? If it is, oh, I had stomach pain every day that I ate grains, or every day that I ate some sort of like bean or legume, or, those types of things, looking for those correlations and then eliminate that, right, for the next week or two. And then track and see, do you feel any better? If you can't find a correlation when you first do it, heavy hitters are grains, dairy, and so start with those, right? I would start with eliminating dairy first and see if it's the dairy. And then I'd go to grains. And if you don't see any difference right in there, then I think I might then do like a food allergy test or something like that. There's awesome too. I was telling Britt during book club, there's some like awesome things that you can send in a home sample, right? And it will tell you basically like what foods really fuel you and what foods maybe to stay away from because your body doesn't react quite as well to.
This is so interesting to me. So I'm going to play No BS Britt, and I want Britt and Dana, like, let's just have a little rift. This is how our book clubs go. So you're getting like real life look. This is not our actual book club, but I want to do a podcast with our three amigos here because we usually are our core ones to show up for book club. Do you feel like it could be like cause and effect? Like, or are we almost like fluffing the votes? Like, I know I'm looking for this. So I have stomach pain today, and then I'm going to see, or do you think there's any way to be less biased? Britt, I want your answer because I think Dana will be like, no, of course not. But Britt, you're usually my cynical one on this. Like, because I think you're seeing the same way I am. Like, is medical median just a crock? Is it all in your head? Like, is this something where we're seeing, like, I mean, Jason says, like, you go to therapists and like, I'm sensing trauma. And he's like, no, duh. Every person has trauma in their life. Like, that's part of it. So is it really food, or is it just our, I don't know, like wanting to find a connection so we make the connection? Britt, what do you think on that?
I think like if you feel good and it's not like you've got an issue that's recurring right now that you're trying to find a cause for, then I'm like, there's no need to like find it if it's something's not there. I do think there's something to be said for like feeling good and feeling maybe like not my best, right? So it's like I know certain things for me that just like through life and paying attention that like I feel better when I'm eating certain things. It doesn't mean that some of those other foods are bad by any means. It's just some things work better with me. So yeah, I think if there's not a problem there, like you don't need to go searching for a problem, but you kind of, if you journal, be aware of like, all right, I really do feel better when I eat certain things. Doesn't mean I can't have the other stuff. Doesn't mean I need to make it like an enemy or something evil, but I can focus on more eating more of the things that make me feel good if that's my goal. If not, and you're like, hey, there's definitely things I eat that I enjoy that I'm like, that brings me happiness and I'm totally fine with that. Go for it.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting perspective. Dana, what's yours? Because I'm sure you've got one. Like, here I am saying, like, are you looking for, are we creating these causations together? What's your take on that?
Um, I think it is, like Britt said, just listening to your body and how you feel. And I don't know that you can look at it as like a cure for anything, but I do think that it can help you feel better on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's something, Dana, you really helped me with. Like, you guys, Dana is a really good accountability partner for me on working out and eating healthy because that's just not something. I mean, I feel like I'm sometimes like a skinny, larger girl. Like, I eat junk. I really do. Like, I should not look the way I do based on my diet. I just happen to get really blessed with really great genes and an awesome metabolism, but that doesn't mean I actually feel good. And I started to know, Tiff will tell you, like, from when she met me, I used to not eat. And we just went to MCDC together with Britt for the first time. I think Britt was also probably shocked. I actually ate before I went and spoke, which that does not happen. But Dana helped me realize like food is fuel. And now adding this, like, food can be healing too. I felt so much better speaking. I had energy. I wasn't lightheaded. I didn't get a headache. I was able to put out more. I was able to think better because I literally ate my protein, my carbs, and my fats. And I knew what I was looking for. And it's become easier for me. And so I do think that, I don't know, when I looked at food as fuel, It did. Dana, you said something really good to me too. You said looking at it as fuel sometimes can also take the like fun out of eating too. You got thoughts on that, Dana? Because I want to hear your
Yeah.
thoughts on this.
Yeah. So it can. And I know when I did it more like 100%, I did it all the time, right? It does. It takes a little bit of joy. Sometimes food is to be fun and to be social and to like just have a moment of enjoyment personally. And so, yeah, looking at as fuel, right, can take a little bit of that like fun or spice or like enjoyment in it. And so I truly live by like an 80-20 rule. Like I give myself that 20% grace of like, if I want a burger, I have a burger. If I want a brownie, I have a brownie, right? And then I just get right back on track. Because I do feel like you have to find that balance and what you can sustain for a long period of time.
I think that that's what I'm learning is I like we don't come out of the womb with these habits. Like we develop these habits of what we eat. I mean, I was watching my little nephew. He's super tiny and he's like spitting out this like apple, banana, raspberry. Like it sounded amazing blend. And for him that's disgusting and he's not really enjoying it. And I just think like we come out of the womb not cultured into these things and so much of our eating habits are culture. And that's what I really think was one of the biggest premises of medical medium of what are we doing and can we look at these things and do it differently? Now, I'm curious, Dana Britt, how do you change? How do you change behavior? Because especially with eating, I feel like it's like driving a car, right? You get in the car, you put on your seatbelt and you go. When I wake up for breakfast and I eat whatever I've been eating for the last 20 years, that becomes harder to shift. So do you guys have any tips on learning these principles? How do you actually put that into application? Or what things have you guys done that have applied from the book? So kind of a two-part question. I do this all the time. What do you guys think? Because I think that that's where it's like I learn all these things, but then how do I actually apply? Any tips you have, Dana? I'll start with you.
Yeah. I think it is kind of like a gradually go into it. I think if you're like, I'm going to cut out all carbs, I'm going to increase my protein, I'm going to eat more vegetables, I'm going to eat all the fruit, right? That's really overwhelming. So I think pick one thing, right? And if it's one thing to eliminate or one thing to add, pick that one thing and be really consistent on it. And then once you've mastered that one thing, add the next.
Great idea. Britt, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think, I don't know yourself. I'm the type of person where like I can go all in on things probably to an unhealthy level at times. Dana and I were talking like for sure I've done like name the healthy eating like diet that's been in the past and I've probably tried it at some point in time and gone like hardcore on it. So I agree with doing it something that's like gradual. And that was one thing that I'll like one slight critique on this book is that I looked at some of the like plans of like what you should incorporate. And I'm like, I don't even know how to add all these things in. And I'm like, and I'm a person that would do it. And I'm like, I'm at a loss of how I would even like take one of these things and put it into action in my life. So I'm like, all right, but like, what are some good things that I could do to start to incorporate in my life and not let this thing like completely take over my life or go to an unhealthy level of me controlling the things that I'm eating?
Mm-hmm. And I think that that's something for me, Britt. I think I can talk on that pretty strongly. Like having a history of anorexic and living that way for so much of my life, like food's a weird zone for me. And my coach that I currently have, I'm like, I purposely hired someone who had eating disorders in the past because food, I love looking at it as fuel. I love looking at it as healing. But with someone who has already an unhealthy relationship or has a possibility to have an unhealthy relationship with food, going to the nth degree, like I remember when I first started with this macro counting, and Dana, I don't think I even shared this with you. I literally went to this room. I'm like, I can eat nothing, Jason, because it was such a shift of what I've been eating and what feels good to me. And food needs to fuel our bodies. But I went to this like, well, apparently it's just easier for me not to eat. And I think that that is a critique of this book of it does feel exhausting. Like it's a huge book. There's so many pieces in it. And it's like, well, shoot. Like I can't do all of that. So why not just not do anything? And so Dana, I really love that you picked one thing. Dana, if you like, what was something that maybe you or Britt took from medical media that you're like, I'm going to go implement this just so the listeners can hear like this was one thing that was a pretty easy incorporation. And we're coming from two people. I think Britt and Dana do kind of polar opposites right now. Like Britt and I are pretty like non-working out. Britt, I'm going to call us out, and Dana's like hardcore works out like 7 times a day.
Compared to
So,
Dana, it's not as much.
I mean, do Britt and I do something often? Yes, and
Sure.
Britt is even better than me. So you've got like Kiera who's completely like no thanks. My workout is like going up and down the stairs. Britt who's pretty solid with it, and then Dana who's like extreme. So Dana, what was something that you took from this book to implement as we wrap up our book club today?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I loved about this book was pushing that fruit is not scary, right? That fruit is kind of that weird, like, well, it's sugar. And I feel like the focus of the book that I loved is looking at truly like the vitamins and the minerals and the individual elements that are in certain foods and not steering away from them just because maybe they are higher in a sugar content or things like that. So I think that was probably my biggest thing because I do limit sugar, right? So, and I went through a period of time where like I limited fruit, and I think that I've learned that that isn't something that I want to do because I want the vitamins and minerals that are in there.
I love that. Thanks. And that's an interesting point, Dana, because Jason and I were actually at the store last night and we're looking at these boxes of food. And I'm like, cool, like there's minimal carbs, but I'm like, what are they putting in to subsidize it? And do I really want that? Or am I willing to take the watermelon or the grapes or the high fiber that I know has more carbs, more sugar, but the minerals and the more natural? And I think that's really where I'm at of like, more natural is better. And I do believe like fruits, vegetables, like those are really good. I mean, I look at nature and I look at animals and I look at what they eat. I'm like, they're pounding that stuff. Like you think about a giant bear, they're eating berries. And I just think it's a really interesting way to view because I think we are so blessed to live in a world where food can literally be processed and made into your exact perfect macros. But is that really the most nutritious? Something for you to ponder. Britt, what about for you?
Mine was similar to Dana, right? For sure, the fruit, and I think that it's just a learning thing for any like fad that comes through. I feel like there's always like some bad guy within the fad, right? Like there's something that's being cut out. And so not to cut anything out. And I think just to be open to eating a little bit more of a variety, right? I think that's some of the things that are in there that may not be part of my normal diet and that not that they need to be something of an everyday, but I'm like, I could definitely branch out more and I stick sometimes to like very like routine habits of things that I eat. So branching out to other things would be my big takeaway.
Britt, I think that's a good one. But it's tricky and it's hard. But I feel like, is it really that hard to add in? And I think for me, my biggest thing was like watch my narrative because I sit
Mhm.
here and I think I create my realities often. So watch the narrative. Am I saying like, oh my gosh, it's so hard to eat like that? Well, then I'm going to find ways to make that true versus I'm just going to incorporate one thing. Like, is it really hard for me to go to the grocery store and pick up one fruit or vegetable that I've never eaten before and try it? No, that's actually a fun game. So let's make it into something fun. And honestly, it's going back to what Dana said. I literally love these two mindsets, especially for someone who comes from eating disorders. So to view food as fuel, that like this body, and I have it sitting right here, it says my body is $1 billion asset, like treat it as such. And so really just seeing my body, like this body is amazing. It gives me the life to be able to communicate with you guys and to be able to work and to be able to come and to see and to enjoy life. I need to make sure I'm fueling this body at top price, like premium gas and giving it the fuel that it really deserves to be able to give me the life that I want to live. And so that was kind of my narrative shift of let's look at these things, let's do one or two things to incorporate to make it better. Let's cut up maybe this. Like I remember someone said like stop eating things in packages. And I thought that was like really beautiful, like easy way because it's so like concentrated and there's so many different pieces put into it. Like if we can just get away from even that, like even if it's just one less thing. So like I gave up fruit snacks most of the time. Do I surely like still love them? Yes, but that was something easy I could give away and let me sub it for watermelon because I'm obsessed with watermelon. Like I will pound an entire watermelon all day every day and I enjoy it so much. So I appreciate you ladies coming on. Any last thoughts you guys have on medical median as we wrap up today? Any last thoughts, Dana, you've got?
No, I think I love Britt's final thought in that just make sure that you're looking for a variety in the things that you eat because it truly can make a difference in how you feel.
Beautiful. Britt, any last thoughts you've got?
Yeah, and my only thing would be like if there really is something that you a condition you have or something that you're trying to heal with food, then like get the right resources so then you know the things are actually worth going all in on and it's being tracked by someone so you know that there's results along with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, I believe that there is so much noise in the world. And so sift through the noise. Don't be afraid of it. Like there's a lot in this book that I'm never going to implement. Point blank. But that doesn't mean it's a bad book. It doesn't mean that there are things like I read the reviews on this thing and it's like freaking critics up the wazoo and lovers up the wazoo. Like there it's like a polar opposite book, which is why I love these kind of things because I believe in a world of so much noise and knowledge, we're seeking for wisdom. And so trust yourself. I feel like trust yourself, intuitively. And they talked about that, like, in your gut. So don't be afraid of that. When you feel like something's off or something's not right, I believe that we are in tune and in touch more than the quote unquote experts can be. So, like Britt said, get the knowledge, get the pieces. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this book. I love doing a live book club for you guys. Hopefully, some tips on how you can incorporate this into your practices, because I believe, like, let's grow and expand people. I have loved learning about Dana in her health journey and in her like working out and being this strong woman. It just really inspires me. And I've loved learning about Britt and how Britt really comes at it from all different angles, and she challenges beliefs and she questions it and then she picks the things from it. And so really learning from each other has been a beautiful journey our team has gone on this year. So join us next month if you guys want. Next month, we're going to be reading The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. One of my favorite books. I think it's a really good one to wrap up our year on. We still technically have one more book than you guys. We're always a month behind. We read the book and then podcast for you guys. But The Obstacle is the Way is going to be the wrap up book for you guys this year. And I think just a beautiful ending to your year as we transition into 2024, and seeing the things standing in front of us is something for us. So I hope you guys enjoyed book club. Thank you, Dana and Britt, for being here. Thank all of you for being here. And as always, thanks for listening. I'll catch you next time on the Dental Team Podcast. And that wraps it up for another episode of the Dental Team Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.